My lord, it was in the SOPs of NAB itself, in their standing operating.
That was accepted. That was accepted
by this court.
Yes.
So that is why you see,
without legislation.
Yes.
without legislation.
And
this is by
so
legislation.
this is an argument which will have.
So my lord is, I think what my lord is saying, if I've understood my lord correctly, is SOP has given a higher standing than a legislative instrument.
My lord, yes, my lord. So this is addressed in two parts. Much better in your lordship's observation that this is an proposition, or this is a finding which offends against the very principle of trichotomy of powers, because this was a legislative function, and even if the court has given a policy indication that where there was no threshold, that came in, my lord, at a time when NAB was prosecuting really petty offences that should at least look at 100 million. That was probably the floor, not the ceiling. And if the legislature has come up with a limit of 500 million, that's in the policy domain. Your lordship will see.
So, Mr. Makhdoom Khan, this is the only part of the amendment which I personally have difficulty bringing my head around, because you begin investigating a matter and it says 1,000 million loss has been caused. And you investigate it more, it goes down to 800, then it goes to 500, then it goes to 200, then you throw it away and say, oh, I don't have jurisdiction. So is there any other country in the world where we fix a threshold, or when the trial starts, let's suppose this is a challan, and now the trial court comes to the conclusion that no, it's actually not 500 million, it's 490 million. It's bereft of, what does it do? So this thing fixing an amount, sometimes you don't know, because it may be accounted for during the either during the investigation or during the trial. So are there any, you may just keep it, don't respond to it, and respond whether any other country or any other statute does these thresholds.
My lord, yes. I'm very grateful.
Sorry,
for that.
Makhdoom Saab, I think the majority judgment answers this itself by saying that NAB only deals with mega corruption issues.
But no, but where do, I'm talking about the mechanism part of it.
And I had, my lord, given an example from the Balochistan High Court, that when the Balochistan High Court reprimanded NAB for prosecuting petty offences and said you should be doing better things, the defense of NAB was that there is no major corruption in Balochistan. If we don't prosecute these people, we would be left with nothing to do. So that is, my lord, Mr. Justice Mandukhia's judgment, and your lordship has noted that this is what NAB's extraordinary response was. And my lord, connected to 500 million and your lordship's observation, my lord the Chief Justice, is the issue of forum. It was
no, I'm just saying the concept.
Yes, my lord.
You need not respond to it now.
No, my lord.
This is not really a contention, just for you to respond later, if you want to.
Giving a proposition which is that there can be no fundamental right in the choice of forum. If the legislature thinks that some offences are better prosecuted by the accountability code, there are other offences.
We've understood that point of view.
Prevention of Corruption Act.
I've understood that point of view. But the point which I'm saying is, there's a question mark at the end, legislature mention amounts when during investigation you really don't know. After investigation you know, and then during trial, if the amount falls short, he will say at the end, facing a whole rigors of a trial, you say no, now he's to be tried by another court. So I just want this to raise this query.
That's a very pithy observation.
No, and are there any other precedents of this kind of legislation in Pakistan or elsewhere,
my lord,
where an amount has predetermined? Only after investigation you know the amount, because someone may make an allegation, जिसने करोड़ों खा लिए, बाद में मालूम हुआ कि जी वो 10 लाख थे, मतलब कुछ भी हो सकता है ना.
और एक और यहाँ पे क्यों,
my lord, is done in fiscal matters. I am not aware of anything in criminal law, but I will research it. I will research it.
इसमें मखदूम साहब देख लेना कि आप इसमें क्या सिंगल एक इदारा क्यों नहीं हो सकता? क्या गवर्नमेंट इस तरफ नहीं सोच सकती सिंगल इदारा हो, ये ना हो कि नैब का है, ये FI है?
My lord, my respectful submission was that before the Ihtisab laws as such, there were other laws in the country and before the NAB ordinance, there were other laws in the country which dealt with corruption. So simply referring some of the matters to those fora could not be violated of fundamental right. In response, example was given of Proda and Ebdo, which were special tribunals of this kind made for disqualifying elected persons, and the response to that was that Proda and Ebdo has a very checkered history in our country, which has been used again for political engineering and political maneuvering. But this is definitely merits, my lord, serious consideration, even with the legislature, that whether there should be a limit at all of 500 million.
I think a very pertinent.
Yes, my lord.
One more, Makhtoom Saab, if you are able to satisfy us that those 35 references which were returned and which appears to be the concern of the majority are triable before any other forum, then the entire judgment goes. And which has been answered by His Lordship Justice Mansoor Ali Shah. Because that is the sole ground on which these amendments have been struck down.
The dissent is a complete answer to that, and that this was an academic exercise, and that in fact on ground something very different was happening.
You have to satisfy us that there is a forum.
My lord, yes, and it was, that submission was made in writing. I'll take your lordship to that submission, plus my lord Mr. Justice Mansoor Ali Shah identifies that in the case of Abdullah and in the case of Bangladesh, the statutory provision was different, and their lordships have followed the judgment from India and Bangladesh without looking at the language of their statute. And that is, my lord, also what Mr. Justice Sayyid Mansoor Ali Shah points out in his dissent, and that's probably the last proposition, that the distinction which was drawn between elected holders of a public office and persons in the service of Pakistan, that distinction actually did not exist in law. And that's the last submission, which
Sorry, come again?
my lord, that is articulated, my lord, also as point of law number 4 in my petition.
So just say it.
The distinction drawn in the majority judgment between elected holders of public office and persons in the service of Pakistan did not have any constitutional basis or statutory backing, because it is absent in both places. So virtually the lordships were saying that people who are politicians, they should be held to a different standard before a different forum, and so far as the bureaucrats and the others are concerned, there should be a different forum and a different standard.
And some others should be above the law.
They didn't go that far, my lord, but
And please don't.
That's very important.
Please don't quote Animal Farm now. एक चीज जो which is I've been thinking may not have anything to do with this case. The scheme of the Constitution, as I understand it, criminal law. There are the provinces. The offenses are always tried by the provinces, and then there's a federation where you have to come up with something federal, FIA, money, banks, income tax, companies. Does the NAB ordinance blur the distinction, or there is no distinction, or is it permissible to legislate? I don't know if this has been considered. I don't think this has been considered.
No, it has
Maybe not be the question in this matter. Was it considered in Asfandiar Wali? You recollect?
In Asfandiar Wali, my lord,
understood the question?
There was, yes, my lord, there was some discussion, but eventually the lordships pointed out that while they upheld the law, they also laid down a number of safeguards. Which
No, I'm talking about the federal and the provincial scope of a law.
Yes, my lord.
Because the National Accountability Bureau is a federal organization.
My lord, yes.
It's not a provincial organization. It has, but it covers the provinces. Corruption taking place in the province. Now, either it is money coming from the federation